Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Alicia. Today we're going to be talking about the books that I want to read for Latinx or Hispanic Heritage Month. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video. As some of you know, Latinx or Hispanic Heritage Month is coming up around the corner. It is from September 15th through October 15th. So this will also partially be my September TBR because some of these books I will start in September and then read until October 15th. So for some of you who are new, I actually already have some recommendations that you can start off with. I'll go ahead and link the video here, but after this video I will also be filming a separate video giving you more recommendations because I've read a lot more books since then. When coming up with this list, I did try to include as many different authors and genres as possible because I do like to read all genres and I do try to intentionally diversify my reading as much as possible. So if there is one particular book that interests you more than the others, I'll go ahead and leave the timestamps down below. So why don't we start off with the book that I'm most excited to get to during LHM month. That is going to be Lost Children Archive, and this is by Valeria Luiselli. And I actually ended up reading Tell Me How It Ends by Valeria Luiselli. I believe like 2 months ago. That was her nonfiction book. I absolutely loved it. I loved her writing. I loved the topic that she covered and the way that she presented information. So I thought to myself, definitely need to go ahead and pick up some of her fiction works, and this is one of them. I actually don't really know what it's about. If you've been here for quite some time, you know that I don't like knowing much about a book before going into it other than the genre and maybe some like very high level information. So I'll just go ahead and read part of the synopsis. This says, a mother and a father set out with their 2 children, a boy and a girl, driving from New York to Arizona in the heat of the summer. Their destination? Apacheria, the place the Apaches once called home. Why Apaches? Asks the 10-year-old son. Because they were the last of something, answers his father. In their car, they play games and sing along to music, but on the radio, there is news about an immigration crisis. Thousands of kids trying to cross the southwestern border into the US, but get detained or lost in the desert along the way. As the family drives through Virginia to Tennessee, across Oklahoma and Texas, we sense that they are on the brink of a crisis of their own. A fissure is growing between the parents. One of the children can almost feel beneath their feet. They are led inexorably to a grand, harrowing adventure, both in the desert landscape and within the chambers of their own imaginations. So I just feel like this is going to be a book that is not only very hard-hitting, but it's also very timely, and I am someone who actually really likes to hear stories about immigration and learn more about the border and its histories. So I'm actually really hoping to love this book. Like I mentioned, I love Valeria's writing, so I already know that's not going to be a problem. The next book on this list that I'm really excited to get to is The Inheritance of Orquidea Divina, and this is by Zoraida Cordova. This is, I believe, her first adult fantasy novel. She has written quite a lot of young adult fantasy series, if I'm not mistaken, but I haven't actually picked up anything by her until now. And just so you know, this is the book club pick for Brujas and Books. If you don't follow that book club already, please go ahead and follow it. I'll leave a link to it down below or the Instagram handle. It is a Latinx centered book club that is run by 2 awesome Latinas, so go ahead and check it out. But this is their book club pick, so I'm really excited to go ahead and pick it up. I did already talk about this book in a different video, so I will go ahead and link that video where I talk about it if you do want to know what this book is about. But I am super excited about picking it up, and this is probably the first one that I'll pick up, if I'm honest, because I want to make sure that I read it before the book club discussion. The next few books on this list I don't actually have a physical copy of, but I did secure them through Libby already, and the first one is called Tentacle. This is by Rita Indiana, and she is a Dominican writer, author, singer, and songwriter. And this is translated by Achi Ovejas. So this book specifically falls within the SSF or speculative fiction genre, and it does have queer and LGBTQ plus rap in it, so that's awesome. I actually, like I mentioned, don't really know what this book is about, so I'm just going to go ahead and read the synopsis from Goodreads. I already have it in my Kindle and everything, but I don't know what it's about, and that's pretty terrible. The synopsis reads, plucked from her life on the streets of post-apocalyptic Santo Domingo, young maid Asilde Figueroa finds herself at the heart of a Santeria prophecy. Only she can travel back in time and save the ocean and humanity from disaster. But first, she must become the man she always was, with the help of a sacred anemone. Tentacle is an electric novel with a big appetite and a brave vision, plunging headfirst into questions of climate change, technology, Yoruba ritual, queer politics, poverty, sex, colonialism, and contemporary art. Bursting with punk energy and lyricism, its relentless addictive trip, The Tempest meets the telenovela. Honestly, that sounds freaking amazing. And lately I have been in a more of a speculative fiction, science fiction kind of mood. So I feel like this is definitely going to scratch that itch. But I love that she's blending all of these elements together. I just want to see how they come together. So super excited for Tentacle. The next book on this list is called Dark Constellations, and this is by Bola Olosiorak, and this is translated by Roy Cozy. So the author of Dark Constellations is actually an Argentinian author, and she's also a translator. This also falls within the sci-fi speculative fiction, but I heard that there's also literary elements in this one. I really love the cover for this one. It's one that I will pick up if I love it, because I don't know, the cover's just amazing, and I love the like black backdrop with all the colorful like plants and stuff. Anyways, so the synopsis for this one reads: Canary Islands, 1882. Caught in the 19th century wave of scientific classification, explorer and plant biologist Nicholas Brunis researches Crisia pallida, a species alleged to have hallucinogenic qualities capable of eliminating the psychic limits between one human mind and another. Okay. Buenos Aires, 1983. Born to a white Argentinian anthropologist and a black Brazilian engineer, Casio comes of age with the internet and demonstrates the skills and personality that will make him one of the first great Argentine hackers. The southern Argentinian tech hub of Barichole, 2022, Piera, on the same research group as Casio, studies human DNA. When the Astromolitan project comes to fruition, the Argentine government will be able to track every movement of the citizens without their knowledge or consent, using sensors that identify DNA at a distance. So it kind of feels like I got very little from that synopsis in terms of plot, but then it also feels like I got a lot in terms of the contents that it's going to cover. So I feel like this book might not be a plot-driven book. Based on what I read off of Goodreads, I feel like it's going to be more centered on themes, since we do follow different characters and it seems like we follow 3 separate time periods. That is super interesting. I always love books that have any sort of time travel or any sort of books that deal with different eras. I find that super intriguing. Love to see how different themes sort of act differently in these different time periods. So, sounds super cool. Really excited for this one as well. The next book on this list is one that I actually own. If you follow me on Instagram, you have probably seen it because I took some photos with it, but I haven't actually gotten to it. I really wanted to pick it up once I bought it, but you know how life goes, the life of a mood reader. I read where my heart takes me, and unfortunately I wasn't in the mood to pick this one up at the time. But this one's called My Broken Language, and it's by Chiara Alegria Udes. Right off the bat, what really caught my eye was first the title, My Broken Language, but also just this beautiful and stunning cover. So I'm super excited to get into this one. But first, a little bit about the author, since I have been letting y'all know about the others. So she's a writer, wife, and mother of 2. She's a barrio feminist. Hailed for their exuberance, intellectual rigor, and rich imagination, her plays and musicals have been performed around the world. They include the Broadway hit In the Heights. Wait, what? Okay, I haven't seen In the Heights, but I've heard like really good things about it. That's awesome. And she also founded Emancipated Stories, an online gallery where people behind bars can share one page of their life story with the world. That's fucking awesome. I already love this author. So, this is what this book is about. Chiara Alegria Udes was the sharp-eyed girl on the stairs while her family danced in her grandmother's tight North Philly kitchen. She was awed by her aunts and uncles and cousins, but haunted by the secrets of the family and the unspoken, untold stories of the barrio, even as she tried to find her own voice in the sea of language around her written and unspoken English and Spanish. Bodies in books, Western art, and sacred altars. Her family became her private pantheon, a gathering circle of powerful Orisha-like women with tragic real-world wounds, and she vowed to tell their stories. But first, she'd have to get off the stairs and join the dance. She'd have to find her language. Weaving together Huda's love of books with the stories of her family, the lessons of North Philly with those of Yale, this is an inspired exploration of home, memory, and belonging. narrated by an obsessed girl who fought to become an artist so she could capture the world she loved and all its wild and delicate beauty. Already from the synopsis, something that really resonates with me is sort of feeling like you're stuck between two worlds. It's a this or it's a that, right? I definitely felt like that growing up because I was born here in the United States, but when I was younger, my mom took me back to Mexico because that's where all of our family was. So I actually grew up in Mexico until I was about 8 or 9 years old. So I really considered myself Mexican. And then when I came to live here in the United States, all of a sudden I'm American. And I don't know, I always feel like I'm never Mexican enough and I'm never American enough. But then you also have, you know, first gen Mexicans who grew up here who identify as Chicanos and Chicanas, and I don't really identify with them either. So anyways, that's like completely beside the point. this isn't Alicia's origin story. We can definitely talk about that more if y'all like, but yeah, so super excited to read this one. So the next book on this list is another one that I have secured through Libby as well, and it's called Finding Latinx: In Search of the Voices Redefining by Latino Identity. This is by Paola Ramos, and she has an interesting history. So from what I can find online, she was born in Miami, but she was raised in Spain, and she is the daughter of a Cuban mother and a Mexican American father, and she's currently a journalist. And so this one really stood out to me because I am Latinx, in case you didn't know by my previous spiel. Shocker. Yes, I am a Latina, so I am a first generation Mexican American, and I feel like it wasn't until very recently that I really wanted to start learning more about my culture and about the Latino community or Latinx community and what it means and what kind of power we have, you know, what our history is, the barriers that we have to overcome as a cultural group, and, you know, keeping our Latinos and Latinas and Latinx people accountable to the way that we are also complicit in different ways. Like I mentioned, different spiel, won't go into it. So I went into Powell's a couple of weeks ago and I saw this one and it was really interesting, but I didn't pick it up at the time. So anyways, here is the synopsis for Finding Latinx. Finding Latinx will take millions of young Latinos, including the author herself, on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment, shedding light on the voices that have been brewing yet overlooked for years. From Afro-Latinos to trans-Latinos, border town Latinos to the young Cuban Americans in Miami, this book will give life to the cryptic term Latinx. Beyond immersing the reader in the subcultures and hybrids that are carrying this movement, the book will also serve as a manifesto to the 2020 presidential candidates, pointing to the voices that are not being captured by the polls, statistics, and stump speeches. To this day, the majority of companies, organizations, and political campaigns attribute the power of young Latinos to the numbers and the statistic that surrounds them. Latinos are the youngest demographic in the country, with an estimated 32.5 million millennials and Gen Zers across the country. 6 out of 10 Latinos are millennials or younger, and every single year, 1 million Latinos turn 18 years old. Not only do Latino millennials have incredible political power, making up half of all Latino eligible voters, but they are also one of the most valuable consumers. They are more active online than non-Latino millennials and are also the most religious TV watchers among the millennial generation. So what I'm hoping to get out of this book is to learn more about the nuances surrounding the term Latinx, because that is also a very contested term. Should we use Latinx? Should we use Latin A? Should we use Hispanic? It's a whole thing. So, you know, I want to gain more knowledge into that, but also see how, as a, I guess, political bloc, how we influence votes, or maybe how are we being excluded, who within our culture and within our group is being excluded. So again, just a Latina trying to understand more what it means to be Latinx. There are 2 more books on this list that I do want to read, and I have previously mentioned them in various videos. They have been on my TBR for more than a year, but I haven't gotten to them. The first one is Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. My mom has actually already read this. I bought it for her, and she said that it's scathing, that it's very honest, it's very to the point, but also brutal. So this is translated fiction. It's translated by Sophie Hugbees, I believe. So Fernanda Melchor is from Veracruz, Mexico, and so she's Mexican. This is what the synopsis says. The witch is dead, and the discovery of her corpse has the whole village investigating the murder. As the novel unfolds in a dazzling linguistic torrent, with each unreliable narrator lingering on new details, Melchor extracts some tiny shred of humanity from these characters and creates a swirling portrait of a damned Mexican village. So this book was shortlisted for the International Booker Prize back in 2020, which is when I first heard of it, and I haven't picked it up since then. So it is literary fiction, but it sounds like there's going to be some horror elements in here, which I'm really excited about. Horror has been my jam this past few months too. Sci-fi horror stuff has been my jam these past few months. So the next one is The Black Cathedral, and this is by Marcial Gala, and it's translated by Anna Kushner. So Marcial Gala was born in Havana in 1963. He is a novelist, a poet, an architect, and a member of UNEAC, which is the National Union of Writers and Artists of Cuba. So this is the synopsis. The Stewart family moves to the marginal neighborhood of Cienfuegos, a city on the southern coast of Cuba. Arturo Stewart, a charismatic visionary preacher, discovers soon after arriving that God has given him a mission to build a temple that surpasses any seen before in Cuba and to make of Cienfuegos a new Jerusalem. Told by a chorus of narrators including gossips, gangsters, a ghost, and a serial killer who flirt, lie, argue, finish, and contradict one another's stories, Marcial Gala's The Black Cathedral is a darkly comic indictment of modern Cuba. Gritty and realistic, but laced with magic, it is a portrait of what remains when the dreams of the utopia have faded away. I really hope the lighting hasn't drastically changed in here. I feel like it's very dark now. So these are all of the books that I'm hoping to read between September 15th and October 15th, which does make up Latinx or Hispanic Heritage Month. I do want to briefly mention it, but I will be reading Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. She is also a Latinx author. I just didn't include her in this video because I will probably read that book before September 15th even starts, so I didn't want to include that book in here, but I will be reading it. So if you've made it this far, leave an emoji down below with the flag of the country where you reside. And be on the lookout for my next video because I will be coming at you with some Latinx books that you can read for Latinx or Hispanic Heritage Month. These are books that I'm hoping to read, but I've read quite some others that I really love and that I really hope that you pick up. So thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!